Okay, so Steve and myself, we're up at Hayes Castle. We haven't been up here for a while. So first thing I've done is go in, have a look at the logbook and see what's been catching and how many. And its numbers are a little slower. This water was stocked, I think it was about 3 weeks ago. So understandably the fish will have settled in, they will have dispersed. But not only that, is the conditions today, which is quite weird really, because we've got quite a lovely day. It's broken cloud, but we're getting a southwesterly, which is normally for this time of the year warmer, but it is quite cold actually, and there's quite a stiff breeze. So it's putting a lovely chop on the water, but when I've been looking out on the water, I've not seen anything really much move. The odd fish, but it's dead quiet on the surface. Now, I don't know if that temperature coming across is pushing the fish down a little. We're expecting it to warm up as the day moves on. So when you've got these sort of conditions, and considering as to when the stock went in, we're probably, we know we're going to have to work a little bit harder. What we're going to do obviously is try jowls, nymphs, things like that, small sparse, put them out on the floating line, 10 foot plus of tippet, and move them a bit quicker to see if we can get any reaction, any response at all from the fish. And then from there, I'm looking at what I'm looking at now. It may well be something along the lines of the buzzers on the floating line, and start fishing them a little bit slower. The fish may well be a little bit more lethargic at the moment if there isn't that mass of food in there yet. I have seen in the margins tadpoles. Whether the fish feed on the tadpoles as much as we think, I don't know. I have heard that they don't. So the strange thing is, with the amount of tadpoles in the margins, I'm walked around the marginal area and I'm not seeing many fish in them marginal areas, unless they're feeding on them at early hours of the morning and late evening maybe, I don't know. But there's definitely not the amount of fish if they were feeding on them tadpoles. Why they're not in that marginal area. So we're going to give it a go, and as I say, start off higher, moving a bit quicker. We can slow that up, and then start switching to something like your buzzers and so on. Now the thing is, I know the fish may not be hitting the buzzers, or the buzzer hatch is normally occurring, but it may not be a decent hatch, you know, it'll be slow. So I'm not expecting fish after fish when you switch to the buzzers. So that could be the next option, but we'll keep an eye out, because the dry fly is always going to be an option also, even though we're not seeing the fish out there coming to the top. By presenting that one opportunity for that one fish, could be the key.
Okay, so I've fished this arm all the way up. I'm fishing with the floating line and I've got the black and blue dowel on. And this pattern normally moves a few fish, but so far it's done nothing. But I ain't going to give it up yet, because what I'm going to do next is work my way back down this arm, but every now and again what I'm going to do is allow the pattern to drop and then start moving it a little bit slower. But it's very unusual not to get any interest at all when covering as much water as I have and fishing the pattern with a bit of pace. But fishing this method helps us locate the fish and gives us a bit of an idea whether they're prepared to chase or not. So it could be that I'll be making a change sooner than I thought. But this will be a perfect example of how fast things can change when you're on the water. And we'll check out this area again later.
Oh, that just went for it down. Missed it.
Okay, apart from a few puny attempts at the fly, this method for now is a fail. But you never know how it'll work later on. But up in the other arm, Steve's been fishing with the dry fly. But he's not fishing it quite as you would normally fish a dry fly. and he's been shouting down at me, telling me that he's getting a lot of follows, but he's already had one fish to the net, and as I go up to see him, he's into his next fish. Oh, it's nicer up here, out of the wind. Yeah, I can feel a bit of warmth here. Okay, so Steve's on the dry fly, and he always starts out with good intention, putting it on the top, as you normally would. But what he's noticed over the past few months, that as he's moving the fly away, that the fish comes up to take. So he starts putting the fly out now, leaves it a moment, and then he starts his retrieve. Now, I'm not going to suggest that this is how we should now fish a dry fly, but if you ever happen to have the dry fly on and it's not working, before taking it off, maybe give it a go. Fly Dan? They're liking your dry fly, Dan. Oh, was it? The one we tied? Yeah. I had a feeling it was going to be a good pattern. Okay, so we had an idea it was going to be difficult today, and that wind and that temperature's got even worse, and I can feel it on my hands. Even though Steve has pulled two on, if you like, a submerged dry, moving it a bit, it's still not the go-to method, I would have said. To get one or two fish out of the day, or a few more, that would be fine, but I'm still thinking there's got to be more to this. There's a hell of a lot more fish in here, and surely they're going to be picking up on something. So what I've done is I've switched now, floating line, longer tippet. I've got a 2-fly cast with a size 14 and a size 16 buzzer. So I'm going to put that around. I may start moving them at some point. So we'll just go through the process and see what we come up with. So what I'll do is I'll put the line out and I'll fish these a lot slower to start, checking out as much depth as I can. But when you're faced with these conditions, the depths aren't going to be as great as you may think. With the floating line on that surface, with that wind, that's going to pull your line round, keeping the pattern a lot higher. But there is also the undertow to consider, which will be going at the same pace as that wind, but it's in the opposite direction. But we can gain a bit more depth just by making the cast slightly more downwind. That at the same time will reduce the drag on the surface. Okay, there's always a lot of talk about the buzzers, as regards how hard the fish hit the buzzer. But this isn't always going to be the case. This will all depend on the size of the hatch and the conditions at the time. So we can experience fish hitting hard on a variety of patterns, but why it's more noticeable when we're fishing the buzzer is down to the size of the hatch. So it's always been said that the highest volume of food source for the fish is the buzzer. But I personally would dispute this, and I would say it was the Daphnia, the water flea. So the easiest way to explain why the fish hit so hard on the buzzer is to imagine this. So if you've ever seen the Attenborough films in the ocean when the fish come across a bait ball. So prior to coming across the bait ball, those same fish are cruising around, saving as much energy as they can. But once they come across the bait ball, it all changes. There is a sudden urgency to grab as much as you can while you can, and it's at pace. And this is much the same for the trout when they're on the buzzers. The bigger the hatch, the more frantic the fish become, going around smashing everything in their path. And when this happens, buzzer fishing is the simplest form of fishing. All you got to do is have your floating fly line, a few foot of tippet and a single buzzer, and you're going to have an experience of a lifetime. And the hits are frequent. So any form of hatch can send the fish into this frenzy. So why is the hit more noticeable on the buzzer? One is the depth that they are feeding, but most of all it's the amount of buzzers coming up during the hatch. And there is no other hatch that'll compare to a full-blown buzzer hatch. Now I don't want to put a dampener on this, but there is a downside, and that is down to our environment and the way things are changing. There are certain parts around the country that are seeing a reduced amount of buzzers, and this is more so with the larger buzzers. But as regards the smaller buzzer, there is ample, but these are more difficult to present. So is it worth tying on a buzzer? Most definitely yes. So if you're going to consider fishing the buzzer, the first thing that we would always look for is the windward bank and the margins. Look out for the shucks. The amount of shucks you're going to see will depend on the size of the hatch. If you're seeing that it's littered, that's more likely a good hatch. Therefore, you want to get your buzzers out on the water as quick as you can. But what if you don't see any shucks in the margins? Is it still worth putting the buzzer on? Most definitely yes, but I will explain why later on in the video.
Wow, God, that was a strong fish.
Okay, I fished those buzzers maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, and the actual take that I had was actually quite soft. It's just the fish are cruising around and it's picked it up on its way through, and you can tell a lot by the take as to what's really going on. If that was an aggressive take, I would continue fishing the same. But being that it was a gentle take, I'm going to make the switch. So the switch that I'm going to be making is no way massive. If anything, it's going down a size. It's a size 16 and it's this pattern here. So this pattern has caught us a lot of fish. And what it does, it gives me a lot of confidence. So I can fish this pattern with any retrieve. But what you might find surprising is how quick I will retrieve this pattern, given the size of it. But I'm only going to be switching the size 14 buzzer on the point, leaving the 16 buzzer on the dropper.
It's doing a fast figure of 8.
Okay, hour and a half later and we're back in this arm. Difference this time, I've scaled it down. So it's the 16 buzzer on the dropper and that 16 yellow thing on the point. So what I'm going to do is move through the water quite quickly with a fast figure of 8 and a steady draw. And just getting a feel for the water as I move through. Okay, so this first fish came to the buzzer on the dropper.
Oh, now the fish is woken up.
Again on the buzzer, and the retrieve again was a fast figure of 8. The amount of activity occurring on this piece of water compared to an hour and a half ago is so different. As I'm working my way down, I'm seeing more and more fish breaking the surface, but I can't see what they're picking up on, and whatever it is, it's small. But over the years, I have seen these hatches becoming more and more frequent, and these fish are preoccupied with this small stuff. I've even witnessed the large naturals drifting across the top and being ignored. So over the years I've had many discussions through the channel and on the bank as regards how to approach this sort of hatch, and the response is varied. Everything from lures to muddler minnows, dry flies, wet flies, anything you can imagine. But with one thing in common, they were all fished with pace. So I've tried most, but what I've found more successful is something small, such as the buzzers. So this is why I will say it's worth putting the buzzer on even if there ain't a buzzer hatch. Your buzzer and your small nymphs are going to simulate more aquatic life than any other pattern in your box. All you got to do is give it a bit of life. Move it.
Thinky little thing.
Okay, with all that information, you're sat there wondering whether you're going to subscribe to the channel or not. Well, maybe it will help if I told you I was going to save you a load of money. And here it is, X-Line. So it's got to be about 2 years or more ago when Justin brought this line onto the water for us all to use as tippet material, and ever since we've been fishing with it on and off. But over the last 6 to 8 months we've been fishing with it more consistently, and I've got to be honest, it doesn't seem any different from any other tippet that we're using. Most of what we have been using is in the £8 range, but getting hold of the £6 we found was a little more difficult. But the best part about the whole thing is its price. It averages £17 or £18 for a 250 metre spool. And if you're like us, that you don't want to be carrying that big spool around, just divide it up onto some older tippet spools. But at this money, it's worth giving it a go. Okay, here's another great thing that I find with the buzzer. These are great for stalking. Using the resin buzzer, they drop pretty quick.
See, Steve does this quite a lot. He just walks up and down, he spots his fish, throws it out. This one took me a bit blind actually. I was looking at a different fish. Yes. Here he goes.
Okay, after a period of time you may find that the fish are not taken as they were, and there could be a few reasons for this. For us, we've noticed the fish are still taking off the top, but the fishing has slowed up, so we put it down to line flash. So we're going to give it a bit of a break. So within about 10 minutes Steve has hit his first fish, and it wasn't long and I hooked into one as well. But what I'm finding more interesting is why are there fish here when there's such a hatch just a little bit down on the same arm. Now the boys always tell me I read far too much into everything, but this is just the way that I am. I like to try and work things out, and for a lot of the times it makes no odds, but every now and again it can make a difference. But for now I think I'll put it down to not everybody wants to have a McDonald's. Okay, so we're back to the hatch, and Steve is making his way around onto the opposite bank so we can both get a line in. So to present what they're feeding on is going to be very difficult, so all we're left to do is to try different patterns and distract them.
Here he comes. See the big bow wave then? Oh, he was on then. I just felt him. I just ran out of reach to line strike. Little yellow thing and a size 16 buzzer.
Okay, after a while the fish were noticeably uninterested with our offerings, so we spent a bit of time switching patterns. Steve then eventually goes back to the dry, and he was getting a bit more interest, so I switched to the black cling film. I was then watching Steve playing his fish. My line was just sat there on the top, and then all of a sudden I experienced the most explosive hit. Steve was laughing as he could see my reaction, but I can tell you, over the years I have experienced the powerful salmon and the speed of the sea trout, but this fish, it's up there. It was so powerful, and when you get fish as strong as this, you're much better off putting them on the reel.
Come on. Oh, 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 oh.
Oh, bloody hell. My arm's aching, mate. Come on, fish. I'm not sure, but I think mine's a great white. I think mine's a great white. Come on, fish. Oh, shit. Oh, my arm is sore. That is one pristine fish. Look at that. Perfect tail. Big tail on the bugger. Off he goes. Okay, that was quite awesome. Steve and myself hooking up at the same time. Got to be honest, there was a hell of a lot of fish moving in that area. We can't even see what they're picking up on, but it's very small. And you're just getting a bit lucky now and again. So I picked that last one up then on the black seals fur cling film fly. I was busy watching Steve and just had the rod down, and next minute it just smashed it. So yeah, didn't have to lift into it at all. But that was one hell of a hard fight. My arm really did feel a bit tired after that. But they're full finned, big tails on them. Quality fish, and the water quality in here at the moment is just absolutely stunning. Okay, that was a very difficult day. It wasn't as if the fish were coming out willy-nilly, and we had to work really hard to get what we did get to the net. But it was very enjoyable. Well, apart from the cold, it was very cold. The wind's dropped off a bit now. I did pick one up, fishing the buzzer slowly. After that, it was just stalking the fish and moving the buzzer a bit quicker, and that encourages the fish to take. Lost a few, but the whole day really has been a bit of a mix. So we were on the dries, we were on the nymphs, jowls, buzzers, so it was a real mix just to get those numbers at the end of the day. But I hope you enjoyed it. Until our next video, take care.